Welcome to printmaking. Now, printmaking involves a number of different techniques. There's silkscreen, there's intaglio, there's lithography, there's dry point etching, all these different things that are done, totally different techniques. We're going to work with what's called relief printing. And relief printing is usually done on either wood blocks or linoleum. But as a child, if you may have had a class where you took a potato and you cut a design in it, and you ink it up, and you stamp it out, that is a relief print. When you see people who have stamps that they stamp on an ink pad and they transfer that to a piece of paper, that is a relief print. And so we're working ourselves with linoleum. Now, the way that relief works is you have a surface and you cut into the surface, and everywhere that you remove the surface, you leave a void. Then as you apply ink to that surface, put a piece of paper on it, and then press down, the only thing that prints are the high points. And that's what's referred to as a relief print. Now, you're going to receive a number of things in your materials. You should all have a art box, and in that art box is going to be your cutter. Now your cutter, it'll come with 5 different blades. The blades you put inside it of the base. You can take this off and then dump the blades out. But that's where you'll store them. Okay. The other thing is, when you put the blades in, you loosen this nut here, and then the blade will slide in and out. Now after a while, it starts to get tight sometimes, and the way that you get it out is you untwist it, then hanging on to this part here, you'll knock it on a hard surface like the tabletop, and that should loosen everything up. Don't take this all the way off, because there's 2 pieces on the inside that one is a little bit larger than the other one. The small piece can get lost very, very easily. And once it's lost, the tool no longer works. And so when you look at the top of this, you'll see there's kind of a little smile shape, and the blade will go inside of that. There it is. You just push it down, and then you screw this back on, and that's your cutter. And you have several different types. You have 2 round gouges. The gouges, one's small and one's large. Then you have 2 V gouges that create a sharper line. The U gouges are used to take away large amounts of linoleum. The V gouges are made to cut away small, thin lines. So you have a large and small of each of those. Then you also have a knife that you can use to cut around things. The other things that you will have, and they're not in your packet right now unless they arrive in the next day or so, but you will get them very soon. You'll have an inking plate, and this has 2 different purposes. It's called a bench hook, and it'll hook over the end of a tabletop, and then you can use it to cut your pieces. When you're cutting, it's very, very important that this is hooked over your table, and that when you're cutting, you're always cutting away from you. And I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. Its other purpose is when we're ready to print, you'll put your ink here, you'll take a brayer, which is a roller, and you'll take that and you'll spread the ink out evenly on the plate and on your brayer, and then you'll be able to apply that ink to your block. You will also receive a tube of ink. Now this is green, but yours will be black. And we're still waiting on that to come. But anyway, this is 2.5 ounces. And this, if used wisely and not wasted, should last you for most of the block, if not the whole time. There's 2 types of blocks that we're going to be using. One is referred to as a hard linoleum mounted block. It's mounted on particle board, and this surface is fairly hard and stiff. And that's what's important to use safety. Think about safety, because you always want to make sure that you're cutting away from your hand. People get very excited about the detail that they're trying to carve, and it's so easy to keep turning around, all of a sudden you're facing your thumb or your fingers or your hand, and once that slips, you've just gouged an injury into your hand, and it'll take a nice bandage to stop the bleeding and everything else. So don't cut towards yourself, always cut away. There's another type of linoleum. This is called a soft cut. Very, very nice. It cuts like butter. This, you don't need the J block. You can just cut around on a tabletop, and because it's so soft, you don't have that force that you're trying to get through that makes it slip through. The other thing that you'll find in your art kit is you'll find a pine cone, and that's simply for your first project. Now each one of you will receive a packet that has paper in it, and you should have plenty of paper for your projects. What I've done is I've given you 3 sheets of paper for each block, because when you're printing, the first one quite often doesn't work out. But anyway, for the most part, each piece of paper is going to be about 1.5 inches wider in each direction than the paper. And so for this block, this one's actually too small. It would go on this piece of paper right here. So that's the piece of paper that I would choose if I was trying to print from this block. There's going to be at least 1.5 inches border around each area, and sometimes just because we didn't want to tear off extra paper, it might be a little bit broader. So this white paper is what we print on. You'll also find in here a piece of tracing paper. There should be 2 sheets. The reason that you have tracing paper is every so often there's a project where you need to transfer something just a little bit better. One of our projects is going to be a self-portrait, and there's different ways that we can do that. When we get to that project, we'll talk about it, but it's a lot easier to transfer that image onto tracing paper and then transfer it on. The other thing is, when we're cutting our block, it's hard to think about this, but it's going to print in reverse. And so if we have any text, like you want to write words on here, it's very, very tricky, because even when you think that you're writing everything backwards, sometimes you'll print and go, the S is now backwards. Everything else is going the right way. Things like that. And so if you write it out and then you trace it and then flip that over and transfer it on, you'll have a much better chance of success. Okay. So you want to use your papers prudently. If you do run out of paper, you'll have to contact me and we'll make arrangements for you to get more, but don't waste it. Now, when we're talking about the bench hook, it's going to be used as your inking plate for one thing, but also anytime that you're working with a mounted linoleum, you want to make sure that you're always using a bench hook. If you're hanging on to it like from here, eventually you're going to put the tool through your finger and it hurts. Okay, so what we do is I like to put my hand down and use it to brace against, That way I know it's always behind the cutting edge. And then, as I need to, I move the block around. And that way I can always be cutting away from me. So that's one of the reasons that we do that. Now when we get to the first project, we'll actually talk about inking and everything else. Until then, take care of all your tools. Don't lose your tips. Don't take this all the way apart so that you lose, the pieces inside, and you should be fine.